Good morning participants, and I welcome you in this new session of organizational behavior MOOCs. And in today's session we will talk about the organizational culture, and as usual first we will try to understand the meaning and then the definition and then various concepts and phenomena involved in organizational culture. We will take that. So, if we talk about organizational culture, this term is consist of two words, again organizational and culture, and already number of times we have discussed that the word organizational means anything which is related to the organization or anything in which a organization is involved or anything in which organization is participating, that is organizational. Now, coming to the culture, culture is a word which can be understood with different meaning among different disciplines. If we talk about culture in society, culture in politics, culture among industry and culture in business, the meaning slightly changes. So, let us first try to understand the literary meaning of culture, and then we will talk about the meaning of organizational culture. So, basically culture is the way of life including arts, beliefs and institution of a population. Culture is related to a specific part of society which may also be known as community, and whatever kind of arts, beliefs, institutions, traditions, rituals and laws, rules, regulations are observed by that sect of society or community of a society, that is culture. Culture may also be understood as the way of life for entire society, and here meaning of society is it may be the regional society, the national society or society at large at international level. So, it is a way of life, how people behave, how people act or react, and what kind of traditions, rituals people observe, and what kind of legal system is existing in a particular society, that is culture. Culture also includes the knowledge of people, experience of people, their belief, their values, their attitudes, meanings and hierarchies. Yes, of course, culture also includes the religion and notion of the time. So, if we want to understand the culture, then of course, these constituents of knowledge, experience, beliefs, values, attitudes, meanings, hierarchies related to a particular sect of society or region of society or a community, then it can be understood. Now, coming to the main term which we want to talk today, that is organizational culture. Organizational, already we have understood anything which is involving the organization or any phenomena which is happening within the organization or anything which is related to the organization. And culture, we have clearly understood that the set of various factors of a community which are expressed and exhibited is the culture. So, organizational culture is the way of life including the art, belief and institutions being observed by an organization. Actually, organization is also a kind of social entity. It is also a group of people, and whenever a group of people are gathered or working together, that will become a unit of society. And whenever there is a unit of society or entity of a society, the cultural aspect will also start emerging in that. So, organizational culture is the culture being observed in a particular organization, or in other words, what kind of knowledge people belonging to an organization are practicing, what kind of experiences they are having, what type of beliefs, traditions, rituals they are observing, what values they are practicing, what kind of attitude they are presenting while working in the organization. Set of all these things together presented in aggregate and totality by an organization is the organizational culture. And again, the organizational culture will include the expectations of the organization, what an organization is expecting from the employees and what employees are expecting from the organization, experiences, what variety of experiences, sum total of all the experiences, and then its expression while working in the organization will also be included in the organizational culture. And ultimately, the sum total of that will become the philosophy, the ecosystem of an organization. So, that sum total of philosophy and ecosystem of an organization will be known as organizational culture, including its attitude, beliefs, customs, and written and unwritten rules and regulations all. So, the sum total of behavior in the form of exhibition by behavior, by communication, by personal presentation, by observing the beliefs, value system, that sum total will become the organizational culture. And organizational culture will reflect through the vision of organization, the values being observed and practiced by the organization, the norms, traditions and rituals practiced by the organization. And yes, of course, organizational culture will include the system, symbols and languages. And this one of the definition given by Needle in 2004, culture includes the organization's vision, values, norms, system, symbols, language, assumptions, beliefs and habits. And another definition given by Deal and Candy 2000, the definition is, it's simply stated, organizational culture is the way things are done around here. So, how the things are being accomplished and done in an organization is also considered as the organizational culture. Now, we have understood the meaning of organizational culture separately for both the words organizational as well as culture, and then we have tried to understood the definition, we have tried to understood the concept of organizational culture. Now, next we will talk about the various characteristics. It is not possible to include all the characteristics of a particular concept in a single definition. So, otherwise actually definition is the sum total of all the characteristics which can be exhibited by a concept, by a phenomena, but it is not possible to include all that. Without understanding the characteristic of a concept, it is not possible to understand that concept in its totality. So, the various characteristics of organizational culture are: number 1, the organizational culture involves the initiative. Initiative means what kind or what level of freedom, what degree of freedom, what degree of authority, what degree of responsibility is being enjoyed by the people or employee working with an organization. Simply, how much employees feel free, what level of authority is being shared and delegated among them, and how they owe the responsibility. That is one of the characteristic or element of the organizational culture. The next element or constituent of organizational culture is risk taking. In the present day, risk equal to money, and that risk should not be illogical, irrational risk. The illogical and irrational risk will become gamble, whereas the logical and appropriately reasonable risk of course will bring a profit. And because of that, what is tendency of people, working with the organization to take risk, and that is also part of or constituent of organizational culture. The next element or factor of organizational culture as a characteristic is direction. How the organizational culture of a particular business company is giving direction to the employees, so that they can attain the ultimate goal of organization. So, it is degree to which organization creates clear objectives and then pushing the whole organization into the direction of attainment of the objectives. And next factor or next characteristic, dominating characteristic is integration. Integration means how the people within the organization are united together. What kind of coherence, harmony is there in the working and functioning of the employees, how they are united together, and being united together, how they are presenting themselves to the world. That is also one of the characteristic of organizational culture. The next element in the organizational culture which constitutes the culture is management support. Yes, this is one of very significant factor for the organizational culture. How the administration, governance and management of organization is supporting the people to strengthen and to observe the culture of organization. That is also one of the characteristic and factor of organizational culture. Next is control. Every organization is unique and different in respect of observance of its culture, and there might be different people having different aspirations, demands and needs, and because of that there might be certain discrepancy or differences in the aspiration and the need of the employees, as well as aspiration and need and objectives and goals of the organization. So, how the people working, how the employee working with an organization control themselves, so that the organizational culture can be strengthened and observed. And next part is identity. As we have already discussed that every organization is different and unique, and that difference and uniqueness develops an identity, and with that identity that organization is recognized, and this recognition of organization as an identity in this world is as a result of the culture of organization. In other words, the organizational culture helps organization to create its identity, so that it can be identified in the world. And yes, another very important factor or characteristic which helps to develop the organizational culture is reward system. How people have been compensated, how people have been awarded and rewarded for their achievements, for beyond the target achievements and all that. That factor will also constitute, will also shape the organizational culture. And next element or next factor of characteristic is conflict tolerance and conflict management. How people working with an organization tolerate the conflict and manage the conflict, that will also reflect the organizational culture to the world. And next factor, or we can say the last factor in this, is communication process. What kind of communication process, what different style of communication, and how communication is working from upward to downward and downward to upward, and then at the horizontal level, and if there is any possibility of diagonal communication, and yes, of course, what different styles of communications are being practiced among various situations and circumstances, like the passive, the aggressive, the passive aggressive and the assertive. What kind of communication styles are being practiced will also decide the organizational culture, and this is also one of the major characteristic of organizational culture. Now, for what purpose an organization should have organizational culture? The objective for which organizational culture should be developed and practiced. The very first is to attain its objectives and to decide a purpose. If someone, a new professional or new employee is entering to the organization, then it is organizational culture which will help the employee to understand for what purpose this individual has associated with the organization. And the second factor which will help in the development of culture, organizational culture, is ownership. Ownership refers to the practice of giving people the opportunity to be accountable for their results. Simply we can understand, those who are owner of the organization, or those who have invested, or those who have created the organization, they are the owner of organization. So, if organization is creating any kind of profit or wealth, that will go into the account of these owners, and if the organization has made any kind of loss and the value of organizational wealth is declining, that will be a kind of debit in the account of owners of the business. Similarly, when employees of an organization are giving a kind of ownership while working in the organization, that will help to build up the culture of the organization. And yes, other factor which can affect the organizational culture is community. What community? Here community means it is related to the geographical regional community. It is also related to the community belonging to different religions and social factors. Those social, cultural, religious, political factors being observed by a particular community where the organization is existing, or we can say the majority of people from a particular community are belonging to that organization, will also help to create the organizational culture. And next factor in the creation of organizational culture is leadership. What kind of leadership is there in the organization? We can compare the existing organizations with respect to their leadership. We can see the kind of leadership given by the Tata Group, the kind of leadership given by Reliance Group, the kind of leadership given by the Birla Group. All these can be compared, and as a result of that comparison, we can see that Tata's organizations are different with respect to the culture, because leadership supports, leadership helps to create the environment, and that environment is supportive in the attainment of organizational goals. So, leadership is also an important. And lastly, it is effective communication. If the communication in organization is effective, certainly that will help in the development of the organizational culture. After completion of that, we will talk about types of organizational culture. What different type of organizational culture are there? Among them, the very first is the clan culture. Clan is a word which is a kind of extended family. Extended family means family may be the nuclear family, then the joint family, and when number of joint families are taken together, that will become a clan. So, an organization can have a clan kind of culture, means it is a kind of extended family where people from different communities or different backgrounds are working together, but their approach, their attitude and their behavior and their actions are just like as they are an extended family and they are part of a bigger family. So, the whole organization act and react with each other, we can say intra organization and inter organization, and organization and community. Their approach is the clan approach. The next type of culture is advocacy culture, and in the advocacy culture it is based on the energy and creativity. People working in the organization will be filled with energy, enthusiasm, effort, and they would be having the innovative and creative ideas, so that organizational goal can be attained. And if all the people or majority of people of an organization are having that kind of tendency, that will build up a totally different kind of culture, environment or ecosystem in the organization. And that whenever there is that type of culture, that culture is advocacy culture. And the next type of culture is market culture. There are certain organizations which are burdened with the lot many targets. They have to say, we can take example of insurance companies, we can take example of production companies, and these companies emphasize for maximum sale of product and services. When the whole organization is oriented towards maximum sale and marketing of product and services, the culture will be the marketing culture or the market culture. Here the focus of that kind of organization where this market culture is practiced and observed, it would be goal oriented, with the leaders demanding for tough and more attainment of the goals and objectives of organization and allotted to the different departments and teams. So, this is market culture. Next is the hierarchy culture. Hierarchy culture is based on the structure and where strictly set rules and regulations are being observed, or in other words we can say that it is a kind of practice of bureaucratic system, where all its activities, all its functions are well designed, and they are accomplished by each and everyone in the same manner, and hierarchy with respect to the level of positions is also practiced. When that kind of tendency is there in the organization, or that kind of traditions and rituals and work style is practiced, then that kind of organization is the is observing the hierarchy kind of culture. Now, how an organization can maintain the culture? We will or we can say what are various factors which can help an organization to develop a culture. Among them, now we have discussed about various type of cultures, among them the clan culture, the advocacy culture, the market culture, hierarchy culture, all these are different kind of culture, and even beyond that organizations can have culture, and because of that every organization will become a different and unique organization. And because if it is clan culture, how that clan culture can be maintained, or if it is marketing culture, then how it can be maintained. The culture of an organization is because of the kind of work organization has to accomplish, and for accomplishing that work what type of human approach is required, that is organizational culture. So, how a typical kind of culture can be created and developed in an organization? The basic elements of that are, the very first one is the hiring and selection practices. If an organization want to develop the market culture or advocacy culture or clan culture, then accordingly in its recruitment and selection process, in hiring process, that kind of verification or that kind of taking sample of behavior of the people, so that after joining the organization there would not be much discrepancy or difference among the working of employees and the organizational culture. So, hiring practices helps an organization to strengthen and build up the organizational culture. And next factor in developing the organizational culture is recognition of employees' achievements and contributions. How an organization recognizes the achievements and contributions of employees, and again it will depend upon the type of culture, or in other words, the way, the method in which achievements and contributions of an organization are recognized, that will help in building the culture of an organization. If an organization is not addressing anything to the achievement and contribution of the people, then the culture would be different. If all the significant achievements and contributions are noticed, recognized, awarded and rewarded, that will help the organization to observe the culture. Even it is in the case of culture, if someone is exactly observing the culture of organization which is supportive in the attainment of organizational goal, that should be recognized. Next is how an organization get employees involved in shaping the culture. Culture is not something which will develop by itself, and if the culture will develop by itself, there may happen a mismatch in the organizational culture and attainment of goals. Every organization needs a typical organizational culture. Every organization needs a typical type of knowledge, skill, competencies and all these things, and as a result of that the culture will be developed. And if that culture is not supportive to the attainment of the organizational goal, that would not be right for the organization. So, organization should deliberately be involved in building the culture, and with this we will conclude this session, and the next session we will take another part of this organizational culture. We will talk about other concept and phenomena of organizational culture. So, thank you for the participation, and I hope you might have enjoyed the learning. So, we will meet in the next session with a new topic. Thank you very much.